There's one key mantra I've learned in scaling SaaS companies. What got you to here isn't going to be the thing that gets you to that next stage of growth. Why? The reason is plateaus exist in SaaS businesses. It means that the things that you were doing that would get you revenues eventually hit a point where it doesn't work anymore to get you to that next stage. Here's the big question though. What are these plateaus? Why do they happen? How do you avoid them? And if you're stuck in a plateau, what do you do to actually accelerate your path to that next stage of growth? In this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 key principles that you absolutely need to know about growing your SaaS business, escaping and avoiding these plateaus so that you can actually accelerate your path to that next stage of growth. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching programs, people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. I used to think that with SaaS businesses, there were only these 3 inflection points in the early stages. You hit an inflection point at $1 million, at 3 million, and at 10 million. And like clockwork, every single time, you would have to change up your go-to-market strategy as you hit those numbers. But over the last few years, I've worked with over 250 SaaS companies in the early stages to help them grow their revenues. And I've seen that it's a little bit more nuanced. It's not so much just about that revenue number. It's actually more about what you did in terms of your go-to-market strategy to get to that revenue number. Depending on how you got to that revenue number in terms of your go-to-market strategy defines when you're going to hit those plateaus and also what you need to do to escape those plateaus. So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 3 principles that I've learned, having helped so many companies, having been an operator myself, on how to make sure you know about these plateaus so either you can escape them or you can avoid them depending on where you are. If you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Let's dig right into it. Principle number 1, plateau number 1, that I see this over and over, especially in the early stages, is when founders tap out of sweetheart deals or special deals and their existing network. We've all been guilty of this. I have been as well. When you start a SaaS business, you get your product going, you pretty much hit up everyone in your network, including your mom, telling them about your product. You maybe have another services business and you talk to the clients in that services business and get them to buy your product. But pretty soon, while that's a great way to get revenues flowing, you eventually run out of clients that you can sell to, sweetheart deals where people are buying your product to do you a favor because they don't want to say no to you, or you're actually tapping out of your existing network. Maybe you have a large following and you've already sold to that network and everyone kind of knows about it and you're like, I need to get more yield out of this, and it's not quite coming. This is something that I see over and over, and I've experienced myself, where your existing network is an incredible way to validate your SaaS business and your product and get to that product market fit if you're careful, but it's not the best way to actually get to that next stage of growth. And when you come across these natural inflection points, you're gonna realize like, look, while my existing network really helped me sell initially, I have to get really good at selling to people that don't know me, that don't trust me, that haven't gotten value from me yet. And this is super powerful to think about, because if you can start to think about this as early as possible in parallel to actually generating deals from your existing network, the quicker you can actually build that more scalable go-to-market strategy to drive growth for your SaaS business, because you will run out of your existing network. So that's plateau number 1. And if you're in this stage, you essentially need to do the work of building a more scalable go-to-market machine that starts to attract people outside of your network, builds trust. And the thing to remember about this is sometimes when you are only selling to your existing network, it can give you a false sense of product market fit. You might say like, oh my God, people love our product and they're buying us, but you'll never really know if you have true product market fit until you go into selling to complete strangers. Until complete strangers are discovering your product, looking at your messaging, looking at your website, going through your sales process or your product-led process and buying, you won't know for sure that you've got that product market fit, which is why it's super important that while your existing network can give you a boost, you should absolutely start trying to figure out how to get cold traffic, random new people that are in your ideal customer profile to actually discover you, to learn about you, and to go through your process to see if they convert to revenue, because that'll be the true definition of product market fit. This is something I've held true to all along, where whenever I started a brand new company, I always avoided getting friends and family as customers. I didn't want people that I knew that already trusted me to buy the product. One, because I really wanted to prove that this is solving a true, urgent, important problem, and I didn't want any sweetheart deals. I didn't want any messy data that was like, well, they bought because they know me. I wanted to make sure that people were buying because the product and the problem we were solving was totally legit. The other thing is it built the muscles early on because I knew I would run out of the existing network. And I knew that I would need to generate pipeline from people that don't know me yet. So as soon as I started on doing the harder piece, the easier piece, the existing network saw my marketing, saw all the go-to-market motions I was doing, and came anyway. But I came out stronger from it because I, from day one, knew that I would tap out of my existing network. So I started building my scalable go-to-market machine. The second pitfall that I see and the plateau that I see for SaaS companies in the early stage is they tap out of outbound or organic. So once you move out of existing network, there's two key channels that SaaS companies tend to embrace. So one of them is they start doing outbound. Maybe the founders do it themselves, or they hire an SDR person or a team, and they start doing outbound emails and cold calling, and they start to actually get revenues. That's totally fine for the early stages and even the later stages, but there's a caveat here, and I'll get to that. The other thing that you can be doing is doing organic. You can start posting on Twitter or on LinkedIn. You can start sharing about what you're building, and you start to get some direct messages or connections or even leads if you have a proper manifesto in place to start that momentum going on getting quality pipeline. The problem with this is there's an inherent laws of physics limit to what you can get out of these channels. When it comes to outbound, essentially it's a numbers game. One SDR can only send out so many personalized emails. So in order to reach more people and get the numbers going up, you actually need to hire more SDRs, and they need to go after emailing and calling more people at the same quality level and being as personalized as possible. The same goes for organic. You can post once a day, maybe you can post 2 times a day, or maybe even 3 times a day, but you're so limited to how fast you're growing your connections on Twitter or on LinkedIn, or how good the algorithm is being to you. There's a natural limit, laws of physics limit, to what you can get out of these channels. So while it's still better than just relying on your existing network and sweetheart deals or doing a weird lifetime deal on AppSumo, which also taps out, this is still better, but this also has its limits. So meaning if you're starting to generate, let's just say 100 fit leads every single week, and you're converting 10% of those to real opportunities or activated trials, and you're converting 20% of those to real revenue, you've got a good thing going. And now you're gonna be like, cool, how do I get 200 fit leads or 300 fit leads or 500 fit leads or 1,000 fit leads or 50 calls a week? When you start to think about that scale, you start to realize that this has real limits in terms of how many reps you can hire profitably or how much reach your organic posts in your existing network in your organic channels are going to get you. So this is a natural thing, and I see companies hit that inflection point where they escape out of the existing network problem, but they graduate to these laws of diminishing returns on organic and outbound problem, where they're like, look, we need way more, but there's no dial to crank over here. We can't make it go bigger. We can't hire 5,000 SDRs, so what do we do? The biggest thing in this stage is, this is good. If you are doing this already, where you're actually testing on outbound and you're doing organic channels and you're generating leads, let's just say you're generating 100 fit leads, meaning they're in your ICP on a regular basis, you're in a good spot. You're already much better off than this first pitfall. Now, what you need to do is actually figure out what's working over here and move it to a much more scalable machine that goes through paid channels. And that's actually not the most hardest thing to do if you know what channels to do and how to actually look at the data and extrapolate out what's working and what's not and scale it out. But you have to get out of just doing outbound and just doing sales, which is kind of more of a one-to-one thing. And you have to get out of just doing organic. You have to start getting into paid channels using what you know has worked over here. This is the pitfall to avoid once you actually start to get 100 fit leads through these channels. They're perfectly great, but eventually you hit a ceiling, and then you have to switch to a much more scalable machine and start generating through paid channels, which is totally fine, because when you start to approach paid channels after having done this one, is a good problem to have, because you know what you put on paid channels will convert because it converted in organic. So it doesn't feel as risky. You know that if you spend $1, you're gonna get $2 back. So that's pretty powerful. Paid channels are okay. You're not gonna be burning cash because you know it's gonna work, but you also know that you just can't keep doing this because you'll tap out. So you have to kind of embrace it. So those are the first two plateaus. The first one is you tap out of your existing network, or AppSumo deals or Sweetheart deals. The second one is you start doing outbound and organic, which has natural laws of physics. They're not infinitely scalable. And you start hitting that ceiling and you're like, I can't go any faster. This is fine, but it's not gonna get me to that next stage of growth. And I've kind of talked about what you need to do to build a more scalable machine. I'll talk more about that at the end of this episode. Now, I have a third one that I also see once they get through these two, but let me pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? The biggest power in this is to understand that once you have product market fit, then it's all about getting your message to your ideal customers in as scalable a way as possible. So if you're building a company, you gotta figure there's at least 100,000 people that could buy your product. So it becomes a function of, can we get 100,000 people on a daily basis view our message consistently so they like us and they trust us and they enter into our process, whether we're product-led or sales-led. That scale comes into play, and it has to go beyond these channels which are not as scalable. And when you're just getting started and you have absolutely nothing, existing network is still great. When you have some revenues and you're trying to get to the next stage of growth, you're trying to figure out, what is my initial scalable go-to-market machine? What's my messaging? What's my ICP? How do I actually do this on a consistent basis? Organic and outbound is great to get things moving, but eventually you hit that plateau. Then you have to switch to even more scalable channels. So you start to see the power in this. Can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Also, if you're in this stage where you're like, TK, it's very clear that I'm hitting a plateau, or I'm about to hit a plateau, and I need to actually build a more scalable go-to-market machine. Maybe it's graduating from the existing network to actual organic and outbound, or maybe it's going from organic outbound to paid channels. This is why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. Inside of this program, I work with you one-on-one to build a more scalable go-to-market machine so you can actually escape these plateaus and get to that next stage of growth. I'll link to it below for more details. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'm gonna give you principle number 3, plateau number 3, and I'll tell you more about it at the end of this episode. By the way, if you're getting value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It loves it when you do that. Okay, plateau number 3, and I've seen this over and over. This is a luxury, right? Like once you get out of number 1 and get to number 2, it's a luxury. Once you get number 2 working, that's a luxury. It's a good problem, but you still have a plateau, so you gotta get to number 3. This is what I see happen next. Once you've sorted these and you're going, eventually we see companies tap out of their ideal customer profile. One of the biggest things I talk about in this channel is you should have your initial customer profile. If you have a total addressable market of say 1 million people, you should figure out who are the first 1,000 people that are most likely to buy your product. That's your initial customer profile, or even your ideal customer profile. But what happens is as you start to scale, you start to say, you know what, we've gone through our existing network, we've now done outbound, we're doing organic channels, we've turned on ads, we're doing more paid channels, we're doing events, we're doing partnerships, we're doing all these channels. Eventually you start to say, how do we go faster? How do we go bigger? And at that point, you may be hitting a limit on your ideal customer profile. Even at 500 million in ARR, we were approaching 500 million in ARR. Marketo, when I was working over there, they had bought my last company, ToutApp, and then I joined their executive team. We realized we had to expand and up-level our ideal customer profile to continue to drive growth for that company. Otherwise, they would plateau. Marketo traditionally did really well in the mid-market. And one of the biggest value creation thesis for that company at that time was to actually go into the enterprise. So it was essentially tapping into a bigger ICP. Oftentimes what this really means is you're going a little bit more upmarket. If you're selling to the extremely small businesses, maybe go a smidge above and go to the lower mid-market. If you're selling it in the mid-market, maybe you go into the lower enterprise. Or it could be an adjacent ICP. So if you're selling to VPs of sales in SaaS, maybe you now want to sell to VPs of sales in manufacturing. So that's another way you can expand the market a bit more and start to tap into more of that audience. And a lot of times companies don't revisit their ideal customer profile. It's always good to actually have an ideal customer profile in the beginning, but it's also important as you grow, as you hit these plateaus, as you hit that escape velocity, as you start to break out of these and you build a more scalable machine, you revisit your ideal customer profile and figure out who do we add, how do we expand a bit, how do we go up level a little bit so that we can actually drive more growth. Those are the three biggest plateaus. I used to think that it was just at 1 million, 3 million, 10 million in the early stages, but actually it's more nuanced. It depends on what your go-to-market strategy looks like right now that got you to this point. And remember, what got you here isn't going to be the thing that gets you to that next stage. You have to keep iterating. You have to keep revamping. So plateau number 1 is you tap out of sweetheart deals, AppSumo deals, special deals, and the existing network. Plateau number 2 is you tap out of outbound. You can only hire so many SDRs fast enough, or you tap out of your organic channels, and then you have to get into paid and more scalable channels. And plateau number 3 is you tap out of your ideal customer profile. It's time to revisit that ideal customer profile and figure out how you can expand it, whether it's going up market a little bit or expanding a little bit. And now you know what are the key plateaus to watch out for. It's totally natural for these to happen. In a way, these are blessings, but they're also problems. So you want these problems, but they're Maserati problems, meaning they're really great problems to have, but then you have to escape them. Otherwise you won't grow and you may get in trouble. And now you know exactly what they are. What you may not know is, okay, in order to get through each of these plateaus, to earn one of them, and then to get out of them and to continue to drive growth, you need a proper scalable go-to-market machine. You may not know exactly how to do that. This is why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. Inside of this program, I work with you one-on-one to actually revamp your go-to-market strategy, test it and scale it so that you can actually work through these plateaus and build a very scalable go-to-market machine depending on the stage that you're at. Specifically inside of the go-to-market program, we'll go through 3 key pieces. The first thing is we'll actually flesh out your ideal customer profile. Everyone thinks they have an ICP until they work with me. We go through a 29-point analysis to make sure that you have the right ICP for that next stage of growth. Once you have that, then we flesh out your manifesto. Your manifesto is your positioning, your messaging, and your strategic narrative on how you actually position yourself in the market and communicate to your ICP exactly what you do and the transformation you're bringing into the market and why they should choose you versus the competition. And then the third piece is we build out your Broadway show. Your Broadway show is a consistent set of sales and marketing activities based on scalable channels depending on the stage you're at and where you're looking to get to. Every Broadway show is slightly different depending on the stage, which is why we work together to actually figure out where you double down, what the data should be, and how you iterate. It is an incredible program. At this point, we've worked with so many incredible companies inside of the program. We've shared so many success stories. So if you'd like to work together, just go to tkcater.com/GTM. tkcater.com/GTM. You'll get all the details around the program. If you'd like to work together, all you have to do is just fill out a little form and then we'll get on a call. What I've learned is the better the fit, the better the results. So we get on a call to figure out where you are with the business, what you're struggling with, what your next goal is. And based on that, if it sounds like it's a fit, we'll sign you up and we'll be off to the races. So just go to tkcater.com/GTM, fill out the little form, and we'll get on a call and figure out how we can help you. Also, if you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. And so do we. We put a lot of love into these videos. If you have a fellow founder, a fellow team member, if you're part of a Slack group or a WhatsApp group with others that will get value from this video, please share this video with them. We want to help as many SaaS founders as possible build incredible SaaS companies. Also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours, it's going to be unstoppable. I'm TK. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode or inside the SaaS Go-to-Market Coaching Program. Take care, everybody.